Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joe, one of your hosts. With me as always is your other pulchritudinous. Oh, I took it wrong at that. Pulchritudinous host.
What's that mean? I don't know what that word is.
He's pretty.
Oh, that's very
Pretty
kind of you.
beautiful. Pulchritudinous. There used to be a Tumblr, I used to follow back in Tumblr days, which just had like soft photos of pretty people, and it was called like the haven of pulchritudinousness or something like that.
Yeah, sure. God, I mean, like, Tumblr gave us so much awful stuff. Like, the aesthetic blogs, awful. The fandom wars, the shipping nonsense, the discourse. It's
the kind of thing that I think you would need a Rosetta Stone for now, because you couldn't put a dyed-in-the-wool zoomer down with Tumblr and it would just naturally pedantic secrets, because it had like not necessarily in any way good, but it's an own internal language and format and structure and all that kind of stuff.
Realistically, the only thing Tumblr was good for was porn. And it was quite good at that, and it was really bad for that then after a while.
Rip to that.
Yeah.
So on that note, do you want to say your name and introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm Brian. Hi.
Hi.
You already said me, did you?
No, I set you up for it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, no, my name's Brian.
Pulchritudinous.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're excited to be here after our sabbatical or sojourn, recharged, refreshed, full of bussy.
Excuse you? It's so upsetting. I can see your realization dawning right now that I'm going to leave that in the edit.
God, I was trying to say Buffy insights. I just got a bit mashed up.
Bussy infights.
Bussy infights. Good God. We're excited to be here to talk about an episode in season 6, Gone.
Mm-hmm.
What number are we up to now?
11.
Season 6, episode 11 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Gone. So before we get into the bronze banter, do you want to load us up with a Buffy Ann summary?
I sure do. Okay, so this episode was first aired on January 8th, 2002. It was written and directed by David Fury, who last wrote Life serial. This is his first time directing. I think he directs like 2 episodes overall, and then has a couple of episodes that he directs for Angel as well. So that's fun. And here is your Buffy Ann summary.
Hit me with it.
Buffy's irregular lifestyle leads to visits from a social worker. The Troika built... It says Troika. It's meant to say trio.
That seems like an autocorrect to me.
Yeah. An invisibility ray and accidentally make Buffy disappear. She torments the social worker and teases Spike sexually. Anya and Xander discover the ray will cause Buffy to crumble. Willow tracks the trio but is taken hostage. Buffy confronts them and Warren tries to kill her. Willow restores Buffy. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, Troika. Wow.
Can't argue with any of that.
Yeah, how are you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's Bank Holiday Monday, so we usually record on a Tuesday afternoon, but it's a Bank Holiday Monday because we're just aware that tomorrow's gonna be crazy busy for both of us. Yeah,
it's a fun, busy, weird period. We're kind of untethered from the time track, as it were.
This chapter of our life is definitely the untethered period.
Yeah, so it's good, but it's like got that kind of like when you're running downhill and you have to keep running or else you'll fall over.
Yeah. A weird thing is that like the Irish government has like over the last week announced a lot, like basically the first time since December, a series of like loosening of regulations around lockdown and stuff, because we've basically been in full extreme lockdown since January the 1st.
Right, somewhere is it that we've been in the most sustained, highest tier lockdown in the world or something like that? Yeah.
Ireland's had the severest lockdown of any country in the world. Mm-hmm. I think overall we have had somewhere in the region of 10 months of full no contact lockdown.
Yeah, love that for us.
But they've announced a bunch of easings of the regulations over the next couple of months, and it's kind of it's weird. It all came as a surprise, and I think everyone's quite happy about it.
Yeah, so I think and that kind of fed into some ways in terms of kind of taking a week off from recording, is that everything is, kind of starting again and compressing and stretching in ways that maybe we didn't fully anticipate. And then we have to be like, okay, like, gosh, where are my hard trousers that I wear outside, and all that kind
hard
of
trousers, jeans, Joe? You mean
jeans?
Jeans?
Hard trousers. and how do I do this and all that. And it's exciting, but it's very kind of like, okay, shaking up the bones a little bit, which is very interesting, and will hopefully lead to, over the next 6 months, kind of some actual specific things that we're doing, like seeing people, go at specific events, outside, all that kind of stuff, which I'm kind of mentally not prepared for.
Yeah, next week, one of the things that they're allowing is grandparents, generally who will have been vaccinated, are allowed to see their grandchildren indoors for like social visits. I haven't seen my grandparents since August. They live like a 40-minute train ride away from me. It's like, it's actually it's a 40-minute journey overall, but it's like a 10-minute train ride. But it's just like, I miss seeing my grandparents. I'm really excited to see them.
Yeah, so it's all this like good positive vibes in many ways, and changing times. I even like I was feeling so out of character, or so like as a colleague of mine unironically tends to say, jizzed up by everything.
Is that just jizzed up in your Buffy or your Bussy infights?
Yeah, jizzed up my Bussy insights or infights, whatever. I know I'm going to get at least one clip for the episode out of this whole mess. But I was so like uncertain where to put my energy that I did a post on LinkedIn, which is for itself is a strange thing for me to do, which I initially ended
because what area do you work in, Joel?
Nondescript
careers,
nondescript educational career services, but I did a post on LinkedIn which I ended with "bright days ahead!" exclamation mark, and then I showed it
feeling excited.
And then I showed it to someone. I showed the draft to someone. They were like, "Take that out. That doesn't sound like you at all." I was like, "That is an incredible note. Thank you."
Yeah.
But on a similar positive vibe, we wandered over on Netflix, in terms of Bronze Banter. We wandered over to watch a film which I honestly knew nothing about, which is The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah, which as far as I know came out on Friday. So this is Monday, came out on Friday. We watched that last night and it was incredible.
It was
so good.
Genuinely wonderful. Genuinely a strong recommendation, because coming into it, it's like we've watched other kind of like lesser hyped in some ways animated films. Like I say, Onward is one we watched, which like we had like a great fun with, but it's like, oh, okay, cool, watch an animated film.
Onward, weirdly touching and actually very, very good. Funnily enough, but like also weak in lots of areas.
Yeah. So I was expecting something similar. This will be a good time TM to watch, but it was it was genuinely great. It was so a couple of things which I think really gave me life, as the kids say about it. It's from, I'll get this from, a Sony Animation Studios, am I saying that correctly?
Sony Animation Studios, and specifically the same team who made
Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And it looks like it. Like it is the basic premise being it's a story of a dysfunctional American family who are the only survivors, or the only not prisoners of a robot AI uprising, which is prompted by a thinly veiled kind of Apple stand-in, and visually absolutely sumptuous.
It does that like CGI animation meets cell shading, where it's kind of like it looks quite painterly, but also just tons of like interjections of very memey, very like
mixed
media, like explosions of like drawings and stuff. Really well integrated though, and like really expressive and really funny.
Yeah, served the theme and the tone and the story very well. Like, wasn't just there as a bit,
Mm-hmm. And actually quite touching as a film. Like, like the core of it, the central family stuff, just lovely.
Yeah, and like as much as it's such a puffer fish you can cut the wrong way and poison people with if you try to do modern families with technology and video calls and memes. Like, it can so easily go wrong. And I really thought this had the air of authenticity to it, where it was like, oh yeah, this is actually how people move and talk and interact in a way that's not performatively modern, and just visually genuinely funny throughout, but genuinely just not taking itself too hard on trying to be a joke a minute. Just the right tone of the occasional kind of shocking, as Netflix kind of advertised it, contains threat. there was moments of like, oh, that was actually a little dark, yeah. The visual palette very much, and music palette very much borrows from that 80s aesthetic but kind of the right side of it, where it's like, it's usually often that goes a little grimdark, a little heavy, a little kind of, loud and crass in terms of the highest notes of, or the most kind of the highlight notes of 80s culture. But this was all kind of like soft pastel lights. It was very strong. It was very similar to actually Infinity Train in some ways, which we were talking about recently. Kind of like soft electronica that kind of brings you in,
And also had a really nice like noughties musical palette to it. Like there was lots of like I heard a clip from a Meishi song. The Meishi are like a band that no one remembers from like 2008 or so, and there was plenty of like there was 2 different Los Campesinos tracks and stuff like that. It was like bizarre, and there was a ton of La Tigra were in it at one point. It was really like, it was specifically noughties goodness in terms of like, and plenty of like Riot Girl or kind of post Riot Girl stuff. Love it, like so good.
And I genuine belly laughed during it, genuine tears at certain parts, and incredibly importantly, wonderfully, the main character, the protagonist, young girl going off to college, gets caught in the middle of a robot apocalypse, is openly and uncomplicatedly queer, both in very much in the characterization, like read true, but also is just made explicit in the film, but is not the point of the film. I'm like, God, like I talk about it so often on this podcast, but that is so absolutely wonderful. And I think a film like this is going to be a genuine inspiration to a lot of people. So it was like such a little gem we found,
Yeah, and I think
a lot of people are probably aware of it, but
a lot of people are watching, I think, this weekend. But like people weren't necessarily aware of it, I think, before that. But they should have been, because it's the same fucking team as Spider-Verse, and that's anyway. They're both such a high recommendation.
You're actually wearing a Spider-Verse t-shirt at the moment.
It was a ton of fun. Huge recommendation. We also watched Rutherford Falls recently, which was the new, what's his name?
Mike Schur
show, who did, like, he's done a lot. He did most recently The Good Place. He did The Office. He did Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think, is a Mike Schur one as well. And also then obviously Parks and Rec being the kind of the epitome of that style. Maybe he didn't do. Did he not do The Office or Brooklyn Nine-Nine actually? Anyway, I know all those teams have a lot of crossover, and they're all the same kind of comedy.
So Mike Schur was a producer and writer for The Office, co-created Parks and Rec, created Good Place, co-created Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and was a producer and master of none. But Greg Daniels is the other person you often hear who also co-created Parks and Rec and The Office and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So it's a bit of a two-hander between Ed Helms and Jana Schmieding, who basically are kind of like an unlikely pair because they've been friends for years, but he's the descendant of a very old, I would probably say kind of Mayflower-y family who live in this American
specifically
town.
Called that at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And the town has been named after their family, Rutherford, and then also the relation with the Native American population there. And she's Native American. The character whose name is Reagan, the other main character, who realistically is kind of the main character for the show. And Ed Helms' character kind of takes a backseat as things go on, as it should be, because she's a better character.
Yeah,
it was really great in lots of ways. It was kind of like a little underwhelming, I found, and maybe tonally didn't quite hit it because it doesn't have that kind of mockumentary format that they're so comfortable with those movies. Sorry, those TV shows. It didn't have the kind of slapstick elements to it that, say, your Brooklyn Nine-Nine does. But it had a ton of heart. It was beautifully shot, and it was it was very clear throughout that lots of Native American voices were on the production team in the writing room, and specifically just like integrated throughout. And it was like, as I think a lot of reviews have noted, it's kind of what Parks and Rec should have done with their Native American characters and the Native American storylines therein,
Yeah, which were perhaps not in a terribly malicious way, but which were always used for a joke, not a joke at the Native Americans' expense, but for a joke. So it was only 10 episodes. It's not a gut buster, but it was very pleasant to watch.
There was
Perfectly.
one great episode specifically, the CEO guy, his backstory, that was great.
Yeah, of the Native American head of the casino, and the tribe itself feature is fictional, but it very much the best parts of the show, predictably and intentionally, I think, are where we hew away from talking too much about the white family that essentially founded or took over the town or the land, and focus more on how Native American culture integrates with 21st century America, and how they both have this like complicated thing where they want to retain their kind of original community, but also obviously have the same opportunities to benefit from capitalism, from modern society, from the opportunities there as any other American. And like, yeah, it certainly, in terms of the authenticity of the voice, taught me a lot more about that milieu than I was aware of, and I think it really came across very, very genuine and very, very unafraid to like not have a clear answer for certain things.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that could have a great season 2.
Yes.
And as we said, I think which is implied in a lot of the production, is that look, you kind of get this kind of groundbreakingly Native American led and informed show on the air by making it an Ed Helms starring production created by Mike Schur, but like that the aim is to like, it very much shifts the reins piece by piece back towards the Native American cast as it goes on.
Also, like, I mean, like, it's absolutely no harm to like in that kind of show, because the point of it is really Ed Helms as a white man, and specifically white man who has a lineage of taking advantage of the Native American population and being contributing passively or not to the genocide of Native Americans. That someone has to stand accountable and learn from that. I think that's part of his role too within the show.
Yeah, and just casually in there, the mayor is the first black woman to be mayor of this fictional town, and they do interact with that in interesting ways, kind of like how there's intersection, but there's also differing interests between the Native American community and her intentions for the community. And just casually, Ed Helms, PA, who has a lot of the like good comedy, is a non-binary character, a non-binary actor, and that's just like,
and a non-binary teen specifically.
Yes.
Like they're 16 years old, so like
the character is. I don't think we think the actor is. Yeah,
I don't think the actor is. If the actor is, then they've been made up to look much older.
But they're an intern essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
it's a curio, definitely worth watching.
Yeah, definitely worth trying. And we will be interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, Buffy.
How do I transition this one?
Buffy.
Moving on from a story about a white man who is an overinflated sense of his importance to the plot, in this episode of Buffy we have the first real focus on the Troika, and their big reveal to Buffy at the end of the episode as ostensibly her nemesis is.
Yeah.
And so we have kind of hand in hand with that. This is the episode for shorthand, the one where Buffy becomes invisible
and
gets an invisible haircut, has sex with Spike while invisible, and that there's like various shenanigans she gets up to, and also her kind of guardianship of Dawn kind of gets threatened by the whole situation as well.
How did you find the episode, Joel?
It was an interesting episode to watch. I thought it did some, because I didn't know where it was going to go in some senses. I thought it was very like I think it was kind of atypical for a Buffy story, for a Buffy plot.
Yeah.
And I had kind of a nostalgic feeling watching it, because I think it's one of the episodes of Buffy from the era that I really clearly remember watching as it kind of came out week on week. For whatever reason, like seeing where she's menacing the social worker really feels like this is live television. I remember watching. I don't like it.
No.
I don't like it overall. I feel like as a TV show I'm watching is like the TV show The Friend. I'm watching like make poor life choices, and I'm like, how much should I intervene here a little bit? And kind of be like, honey, like you need to not do this naked sex thing, fellatio thing that you're doing. It's not a good look.
No.
So yeah, I did not like it as an episode. I don't feel I did anything heinous.
No.
But I don't know what I wanted to get out of the episode.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like, I think I would say the fluffy elements to it are fluffy, and it's definitely not a painful watch in any way. But like, is it forgettable? And yes, is it worth like extensive like inspection? Not really.
Yeah.
And like, there's definitely stuff about it that's not good. So yeah, I suppose the first thing would be just like basically Buffy goes invisible. And she kind of explores that as an option to, escape her problems. It's a very clear metaphor there around Buffy.
Also, just to be clear, she goes invisible because the trio accidentally turn her invisible. There's that's the reason for it.
Yeah, they accidentally turn her invisible just by, really close. But just after she's got her haircut, because Spike tells her that she really loves her Goldilocks hair. He's like, oh, I'm always saying that to you. And it's like, I'm not sure if you do, but okay, whatever. So Buffy goes invisible, and she clearly enjoys it too much because it's escapism for her. And, Dawn kind of highlights like, why aren't you trying to fix this? This isn't okay, etc. And yeah, I mean, like the point that they bring her to the end where, she feels like she is going to die, or they tell her she's going to die if they don't get this fixed. And she realizes, no, I don't want to die. Yeah. When given, like when it's presented in front of her, I think that's, in some ways, strong psychological storytelling, because it's like, it's a moment of, you feel like you don't have anything to live for, but when presented with the option of, do you want to die, like, here's an immediate option. It's like, oh no, I realize that that's not what I want. Yeah,
one psychologically good note on that, I would agree, would be that whenever Buffy has been in threat of death previously, it's been while she's been defending someone else. Like, that's generally when she tends to die, when she's fighting a monster, or she's in a death-defying situation. I think it's good to give her a situation where she has to decide if she wants to live, where the only immediate downside would be that she personally would be dead. Yeah. Because you can't just say, okay, well, I obviously have to fight because I'm defending these civilians, etc. It's really just her. It's a very she is like the center is kind of coming apart in her individually, and I think again it illustrates some of the differences in how you and I see the world, because through this episode we have Buffy invisible. She is bothering moving their coffee cups. She's getting in the golf cart and driving away on the ticket inspector, all that kind of stuff. Until you pointed out to me, it did not click for me that Sarah Michelle Gellar was not present for those scenes. Because you told me that one of the reasons why she's invisible, why it was scheduled in this way she was filming, was a Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, the first Scooby-Doo movie.
And like, I knew she did the voiceover, but I still thought she was around, like off camera or something, or like, I don't know, like they would get her to do it first, and then they would like copy how she would. I don't know what.
Joel, are you aware that she wasn't present for the scenes where she was a rat in season 2?
No, that thing also confused me. Again, I thought she was kind of like off screen, looking at the monitor, being like, "Oh, Buffy Rat wouldn't do it." I don't know. I didn't interrogate it until now. But again, like the scenes, even in voiceover, like great comedy.
Yeah, great comedy, and I think it's well integrated. It doesn't feel like Buffy is not present for those scenes.
Yes.
So the actual staging of it is actually quite well done.
I just remembered her holding up the eyeballs in the magic shop.
Yeah.
To like, ooh, I'm a spooky pair of eyeballs. Where am I looking?
There's also on our DVDs, because it is in widescreen, as you may have guessed, there was plenty of things where it was like, oh, we had not planned for this to be seen in widescreen. Yeah. So like when she's typing out the thing for Doris, the social worker, she like you can see they've rigged up the keyboard to have these little wires that pull down the
fishing line, I presume.
To pull down the things.
Kind of fascinating.
It was fascinating, and it was really bizarre just to see that. It was great. I'm glad to have seen it, but it was funny. So there's plenty of things like that, and I think the stagecraft of creating an invisible person, creating some. Oh, we should rewatch the Invisible Man. Anyway, so the stagecraft of that, it takes a lot to make it believable. It's a lot of very soft suggestions for a lot of the time, and they did a good job of it. Like, I didn't feel like Buffy wasn't present in those scenes. I felt like she was, and she was invisible. It's a good way to do it. Anyway, so I'd agree. Yeah, so the absolutely the most heinous things for me were the interactions between Buffy and Spike. So Buffy goes to Spike, and kind of explores this as a way to have her, like, to interact with Spike without feeling the disgust of having to be seen doing it or whatever. So there's a scene where Xander comes to find Spike to help Buffy, and Spike is thrusting into Buffy and tells Xander that he's doing naked push-ups.
Yeah.
And there's another part where she gives him head, like, and he's like surprised by it, and he's like, "Oh."
And also, while she's visible, he does put his hand down her trousers.
He does. He fingers her.
Yeah. So there's yeah, to the point there, Brian. Absolutely.
Which, like, you know, listen, flirty stuff, whatever. This doesn't feel like risque adult content. It feels like, you know, oh, the previous seasons, the restraint, the suggestion, you know, the stuff around, like it just doesn't. If this is what you're planning to do, you should have. The restraint was good. Like, isn't the restraints that were applied to you kept you from making bad decisions? And apparently, Marty Noxon specifically was not comfortable with that scene. Not that she was, like, you know, like, made to feel uncomfortable, but I think she just didn't like that scene with Spike in the bedroom, and specifically David Fury and Joss Whedon thought it was hilarious and insisted on including it. And looking back now, it's like, oh, do you think you should have listened to the woman in the room in that instance? Yeah,
there's a real element of just like bro-ish humor about it, you know.
I agree.
Be like, lol, imagine if you were having sex with a girl and she was invisible and no one could see it. And if it brings, even within text, within story, that Xander Harris is pitying you, is like, you've probably gone in a bad direction for this character who is meant to either be terrifying or a heartthrob. Yeah.
What I want to know also is, okay, let's say if you're invisible like that and you're having sex, how do you find your clothes again afterwards?
Yeah, this is exactly it, because he said find your clothes if you can.
But she does have her clothes on her by the end.
And she's not like organised. She wouldn't be like, I'm going to leave my clothes here. I will remember that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It would have been a great visual joke if she had, like, when she got de-invisible, that her t-shirt was on backwards or something.
Yeah.
That would have been a good joke.
Yeah, there's a lot of terrible things that could happen while you're invisible.
So yeah, and this, as you're saying, this episode definitely does bring the trio into the fore, because the Scooby Gang meet the trio for the first time. So throughout the episode, Willow is struggling not to use her magic, and we'll talk about that in a second. And she just Nancy Drews her way to finding Buffy and the trio, and to de-invisibilize her, re-invisibilize
to deal with the quasi-mystical quantum properties of her invisibilization.
Yes, exactly. And while doing that, she does have to, like, hack into some online things, and she's like, maybe I'll magic it to make it faster and stuff. It's nonsense. Whatever. That's nice to see. Well, I think it was a good episode for Willow. But so they find the trio. There's a big invisible fight, which is all suggestion and things crashing through pinball machines in the corner of an arcade, because of course it's an arcade.
Yeah.
While the other patrons of the arcade have no idea what's going on.
It's actually a pretty good joke, because one of the reasons why you watch Buffy is because whenever the fight scene comes at the end of the episode, it's like, what creative choreography are they going to do? And it's like, it's implied that it's still happening. You just can't see it.
Yeah, no, it is good. It's well executed. And they find out that, yes, here is Jonathan, because they recognize Jonathan's voice. Warren, who Buffy knows previously from having made April, and then also then Andrew, who they're all like, who the fuck are you? And the joke there is they're like, oh, it's Tucker's brother. Oh, cool. And yeah, and now we've kind of introduced our main characters to the big bads for the season, and it was nothing, you know.
Do you think we're kind of going sideways on this a little bit, but to any appreciable degree, are the trio actually a big bag of this season?
Yes, I absolutely think so. Because what Warren represents, that, and what they all softly represent, and Warren in a hard way represents, that kind of ingrained misogyny and the genuine violence that humans can do to other humans. Is like, it is the central threat of the season. And Willow's reaction to it, and her losing her ability to continue as a human being, is like is the result of their is a result of their big badness. Because Willow isn't the big bad of the season, like Warren is. Willow, like Dark Willow is a response. Yeah.
So really, it's 2 seasons where the first evil inside the hearts of all people is the real big bad.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah. So yeah, and like that's obviously it's complicated, because the trio, the joke there is that, like, they're a shitty like, big bad. But also then there's the element that, like, that kind of boring, insidious misogyny and is horrific and genuinely present. And so, like, I think that's good. I think it's badly executed, though.
Yeah. And it's entirely atypical because it's the only season that doesn't have, at the end of the day, an actual big bad that has little bags, lieutenants, like a plan. Do you know what I mean? It's the only one that genuinely swerves from that formula, which is I think interesting. I do like the fact that obviously one of the driving factors for this was that Sarah Michelle Gellar herself wanted to get a haircut.
Yes.
And one of the recurring jokes in the episode is just people when they see the haircut be like, "Oh, that is adorable. It's a great haircut."
It's a nice haircut.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that later in the fashion segment.
We will.
So yeah, Willow in this episode, I think, has a reasonably interesting arc. She's trying to, restrain herself from using magic, and I buy it. At one point she does blow up at Xander when he's like, "Oh, did you magic Buffy away?" And it's like, Willow, like, I know you're trying, but, like, you need to be patient with people who are saying, like, "Oh, I'm worried you're gonna slip." Because
when you have demonstrably magic people away or equivalent several times,
exactly, yeah. But no, I think it's a good turn for Willow, and I'm glad that this is the kind of the progress she's going to make during the season. Not that, like, I think her actually using magic, because the metaphor is so fucked by this point. I think it's actually, I don't disenjoy her using magic. I obviously, when the show is presented it as being an addiction issue, seeing her fighting that and coming to terms with herself and reclaiming that about herself is a strong, it's a powerful approach.
Yeah, I think that the marriage of magic is like both an addictive pastime, but also like obviously a utility in the world. Like she can be used well or not. It's almost like if you were to bring together, okay, someone has alcohol addiction issues, and in the course of that, they engage in some reckless driving that like endanger the person. Would that person then be reluctant to just drive a car to the shop? If so it's like how you disentangle that. It's an interesting way. But I think definitely a strong episode for Willow. And I think I'm continually impressed to be like, oh, over the course of the show, like Willow really does become kind of a secondary protagonist in a lot of scenes, in the way that like Giles will never be the protagonist because he's inherently a support character.
Yes.
He's a necessary support character. Almost every other character is also a supporting character, and Xander never really takes the main stage in that way.
Angel could have been like, Angel had clear main character energy, which is why he got spun off, and Spike as well. I think Faith isn't a supporting character at all. Faith is so specifically a chaotic element. And then I think Spike is kind of like they try to continuously suggest that he is going to have
it's like DLC kind of character.
Yeah, DLC character. And he never quite takes off, in my opinion. Anyway, so the other, I think, last element really to talk about is I've seen a couple of people, Mark Field kind of talks a little bit about how fan reaction was that Buffy's messing with Doris is a reasonably similar like
interference
moral kind of like space as Willow in the Bronze messing with all those people through magic. What I'd say is Doris was bad at her job and like didn't listen to the person in front of her and like willfully misinterpreted everything around her.
So the precipitating scene, which we haven't actually talked about, is when Doris comes to see the house and a surprise visit, and everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and it makes it seem like that it's just a really irresponsible household. Spike is a weird boyfriend, that there's magic weed all around the place, all that kind of stuff.
And that Buffy's maybe a lesbian and she's like, homophobic towards her.
Yeah, and that's kind of an element. Oh, you live with a woman. Yeah. But Doris takes a little bit of glee and satisfaction in being like, well, like, I know I the reason why I love my clipboard is I can tell strong-headed little girls like you to get your life together, else I'm going to take your sister away. Like there wasn't that, and actually I think that whole thing is quite like a problematic portrayal of people who work in those services anyway.
Yes, social workers are for the most part like empathic, very like one of the absolute toughest jobs you can have. Yeah,
like if you were in a situation and the only problem, like the problems that you encounter in the household were the problems Buffy has, you'd be like, this is like an easier one to fix than some of the, where she goes back to her boss and she's like, this harlot is destroying her family. Like that's the vibe of it.
She also didn't talk to Dawn at any point.
Yeah.
Which is like an incredibly important part there, because what Dawn would have said is, I feel very safe, I feel very well taken care of, I'm 15 going on 16, I'm very clearly capable of communicating my status here. And, her grades are dipping and stuff like that. Her mother died.
Yeah.
You fucking dope. Like, her mother died. She's now with her sister. And you're saying, oh, maybe we should take her away. That's not how social workers work. Anyway.
I did get a vibe with Buffy messing with Doris. It it's a strange thing to say. It reminded me of when you are annoying her or something and you're trying to think of something mean to say, and it's just not that mean really in the end. Because she's like, how am I really going to screw over this woman? I'm going to move her coffee cup and I'm going to print out some stuff that makes her look crazy. It's a big kind of oh, okay, well, that's adorable, really.
Yeah, well, no, she does also whisper to her, kill.
Does, but she doesn't kill. It's not like she thinks she's actually going to kill anyone.
But yeah, no, I think I'm not going to say it's justified. I think that scene, if you're interpreting it as potentially on the same moral space as Willow's actions, I think you're willfully misinterpreting it. I think that was a comedic scene, and also an important one just to say that was a pressure on Buffy. It's allayed now to some degree, but it's an ongoing concern, and Buffy is avoiding responsibility, but what the scene is trying to communicate is Buffy is avoiding responsibility, not that Buffy is manipulating and torturing a woman.
I think that's fair. A fair position to have.
Okay, should we go into the bronze banter? The other one, no, the dusting.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any Buffy bits there for me, Joel?
For some reason, I've written there here as a Buffy bit that Coco Apelli wishes the fertility statue in the house that they have to get rid of, and because my temp. Willow, I have written down, is secret big bag of season. I don't know if I thought that was because it was basically the threat of toxic masculinity or something. But I'll keep an eye on that developing arc. I also have to highlight Buffy's quote about Willow. She's gay, but we don't gay. That's one of the great moments of representation for queer people on this show, I think. And yeah, just there was some interesting, I think, special effects as well in terms of having the. I like the kind of the aspect where they they spray painted the traffic cone to find it, and then Anya put her hand through the melting cone. Was kind of a nice element to it as well. I also enjoy how Anya just wasn't particularly fazed with the fact that Buffy was invisible. And there was a callback there as well to God, why can't we remember this woman's name every time recently? We've
Marty.
We've had to speak about her. Also from Carnival turned
Marnie.
Sorry, yeah, I thought you said Marty as in Knox.
Yeah, no, Marty. I can hear myself not
what's
replacing the N with a D there. Marnie.
What's her name?
Clea Duvall.
A callback to Clea Duvall's invisible episode early on in the show, where which is weird because Sandra was like, "Do you feel like you've been ignored recently?" And I was like, "Well, kind of, not quite, but there is it wouldn't be so unreasonable for Buffy's kind of emotional distress on the helmet to have turned her invisible." Yeah,
I think when we're referring to the episode in the future, we have to refer to it as oos.
Oos.
Yeah. Out of mind, out of sight. Oos. Okay. My Buffy bits would be just for people's information, the UK and our Irish DVD version of this episode does not have a famous typo, which is in this episode, which is where it says "encrypted" or something like that on when Willow is trying to decrypt the information of the something.
Instead of encrypted.
Encrypted. Our copy doesn't have that typo. It's been fixed. For whatever reason,
but fascinatingly about that, that was a hard coded mistake. That was on the actual screen of the computer in the scene, so I don't even know how it was fixed. Obviously, it didn't look like it had been edited. Yeah,
it's a bizarre one. But otherwise, not a huge amount of Buffy bits. I just have them in big bold letters. Spike is fingering Buffy.
None deaths as well.
No deaths.
None deaths.
Oh, great. Okay. Fashion. Obviously, the big fashion note for the week is that Buffy looks great with her new haircut. I think it's very useful and very nice. I noted that Buffy's top when she's not invisible is super see-through. So maybe that was supposed to be a hint. Andrew is wearing a SpongeBob SquarePants t-shirt, which is fair enough. I think the absolute gall of them to put Sarah Michelle Gellar in that wig in the beginning of the episode, because she already had her haircut before the episode. The wig is
tall glass of water.
It is one of the worst things I've ever seen. It could not more clearly look like a hairpiece on a person's head. It's a bad wig.
It looked like, sometimes you see people in a wig and it's like you've not disguised the fact you put hair on top of existing hair. Yeah. It's just double hair palace.
Yeah, I don't think I have any more fashion notes. Do you have any, Joe?
No, I don't think anything else for the fashion side of things. Just one other Buffy bit type thing in this section I want to mention was there is a deleted scene in this episode.
Oh, yeah?
A deleted line which I thought was actually a kind of a nice one, which is Buffy stops someone from bullying a teenage girl and says to them, "Be careful who you bully, kid. You'd never know if she's going to be the next chosen one."
Oh, I'm glad I got that.
I kind of like that.
Okay, what rating would you give this episode?
6 on the bottom, maybe 6.0.
I was going to 6.7. I thought the fun parts were fun, and like it's we've like they're worse episodes we've rated. Six is fine. You're sad.
No,
sorry,
I'm
we haven't said. Wait, 6.7. 2 crystals on the peacock. 10.
Okay. I'm going to say 6.0. Big ass radiations, and I can't remember if that was a quote or something I wrote down about someone's ass. Big ass radiation. I think it was more fun than the previous episode, absolutely, and there's some aspects of it I enjoyed. About kind of Buffy doing the comedy bit, loved it. I really like feel ick about that like Spike scene.
It was gross.
And it's just one of the ones that I remember where I'm like, yeah, I just remember it, and it takes part of my like memory of this part of the show. And it's just weird and weird, and it makes me feel weird. Yeah, so like I'll bring it right down for that. Yeah.
It's totally inappropriate.
You just wouldn't see it on TV these days on any respectable TV show. Yeah.
And you know what is not totally inappropriate is in Once More We're Feeling when Willow goes down on Tara. That's an example of sexual explicitness, which feels appropriate for the milieu of the show. It feels a bit shocking, but it's like it's not using sexuality as like a oh, we're so edgy moment.
Yeah, it's actually edgy. It's
real edgelord energy to it. Yeah. And also you can just hear the like annoying grown men, married men giggling about it in the background. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. The angel Cordelia chase. So this episode was birthday.
Yeah, very much the Cordelia chase on this episode. So we have an episode where essentially Cordelia's brain damage from having taken the visions from Doyle has persisted for over a year. It's gotten to the point now where she is being made comatose by these visions and very much pushing her into life or death territory. There's actually an interesting contrast in this episode because I actually thought this happened a few episodes ago because it was so long since we've seen it. But there's a bit while she's in the coma where she is invisible to other people, but we can see Cordelia, and it contrasts with Buffy here, who we can't see, which I thought was interesting. I don't know how intentional that is, but I do find that occasionally thematically Buffy and Angel have some crossover week to week. So it's a very Cordelia centric episode. It's very much focused on how she has grown as a character since leaving Sunnydale, and how they do this is she encounters in her kind of comatose state, she encounters the same demon Skip who previously Angel fought to free Billy Blim from hell, who is presented as a demonic, like a demon, but like an avatar of the powers that be, or not avatar, but a representative. And he takes her on a bit of a vision quest essentially, and it's like, you have two options here: either we take the visions away from you, or your head's going to explode like this 18th century barmaid we're going to show you, who has the back of her head blown out. Humans aren't meant to have the visions. And in the course of that, they show her we see a couple of things. One is that Angel's feelings for Cordelia in the real world have very much massively deepened. He's very distressed by this, and is very much trying to like find a solution. And again, because consistently like threatening people who should be his allies. Like he threatens Lauren, and it's like, find me a way to talk to the powers that be, or else I'll break your horns off or whatever. But she sees a vision of a life where she digs Sunnydale and she came to LA, but after that she became a big shot actress essentially. So
and she has an incredible sitcom opening sequence, which
Corgi exclamation mark
which Marty Freeman does appear in.
Yeah, as her best friend in the show.
Marty Noxon, sorry. Who's Marty Freeman?
Martin Freeman is an actor. He's Bilbo Baggins. And yeah, that's great. So it's like there's actually quite an interesting narratological thing they do where she's half investigating it in the real world and half kind of investigating it in this parallel reality. And they're kind of overlapping, and we see the kind of classic what if, for want of a nail, wish verse kind of stuff. So this is the second time this has happened to Cordelia, essentially.
Yeah, and the interesting notes there is things like Wesley has no arm for some reason, but it's just hidden under his t-shirt or his shirt, and Angel has gone. Why does Angel?
So this is great. So she eventually, in the course of trying to investigate this mystery, finds a couple of unusual things. The mystery is like, why is she having like memories kind of from her original life? Yeah. They go to the Hyperion Hotel, which somehow, because she's now a famous actress, is now still a working hotel, even though it was shut down 50 years ago. Yeah. And presumably there's still that African American woman up in the attic or whatever with the $1 million.
Was she African American?
So the reason why she rang was because her boss didn't realize it, but she actually had some African American. Like she wasn't entirely from a white background. Okay. And that, if I'm 100% on that was kind of one of the reasons why she rang. Yeah, it was like a racism thing. I could be corrected on that, but I'm pretty certain that's what it was. She goes to the Hyperion Hotel, and she also encounters, Wesley and Gung and Angel, who are working together. But Gung, Wesley has lost his arm because of Cordelia wasn't there, etc. And with Angel, it's implied that when Doyle died, Doyle gave him the visions instead of Cordelia because Cordelia wasn't there.
Doyle kissed Angel instead.
Yes, like that's kind of without any other bridging information. That has to be what happened. Yeah,
headcanon.
Headcanon, exactly. He's gone completely mad from it. And yeah, she kind of makes it quite.
Why does he go mad though? Because he could handle it as a demon.
Yeah, it was unclear. I think it was a mix of like he had kind of gotten to a similar point to where Cordelia had, but also it was that he was so devastated over Doyle's death and he had no one to help him.
Okay. It
was like a real kind of like what if scenario. It was like we haven't quite like plotted all of this out, but like it's impactful. Yeah. I enjoyed the fact that where they took her for her spiritual journey was a shopping mall. Obviously a good note. And yeah, it's really just about the fact that like she has one of two options, and she says, well, I choose the third option, which is that this is part of who I am now. Helping people is part of who I am, and I need to be able to do that to make that happen. And she finagles a situation where she becomes she's made part demon. It's never entirely clear in what way she is part demon, but she made part demon, comes back to the regular world, and she can
float.
So she can, well, importantly, she can get the visions, and she's completely unaffected by it. And then the kicker at the end is she's floating because she's kind of demonic, and that never comes up again, I don't think. But it's really about her. It's like this is a significant part of Cordelia Chase's arc, where she's not a victim of happenstance. She is choosing to do this, and she's choosing to help people, which I quite like. I think she is a tour de force throughout the episode.
Though that all will be undermined with the what's her name?
Jasmine
stuff, which obviously basically all implies that all of this was done by Jasmine to get herself onto the world, etc.
Yeah, but I think that I've always had a problem with later arcs which try to borrow legitimacy on any show or any film by saying any of the stuff you used to love, that was me actually, because I think they even implied that's why Angel was cursed with a soul. It goes back that far. So anyway, let's disregard that. As we stand in this episode today, great performance by her. Everyone has fun with their alternate characters. It's an interesting, it's a classic episode of genre television. I would say maybe not as much as last week, but it definitely stands toe to toe with Buffy for me this week, I think.
Well, it's definitely better than both the Buffy episode for the week.
You think that as well, do you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'd say this is a strong 8 failed feminist gestures.
Yeah, I would agree with you. 8 failed feminist gestures. Which is always a weird one to give it when it's like a good episode with Cordelia.
Like this and Billy, I think, are the two ones where it's like failed feminist gestures. Ultimately failed, yes.
Yeah, ultimately failed feminist gestures. Yeah, so I enjoyed it.
Me too.
It's been a fun time to watch Angel, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good timing for it because Buffy season 6 it's a bit of a mess. It's either not doing anything or what it is doing is a bit shit. And then also sometimes a bit great, obviously. So with Angel having a strong season here, it just means that specifically our watch through at the moment, it means that the Angel is just like it's nice to be able to be like, well, the Buffy's going to be a bit of a mess because like next week is Buffy Palace, and But the Angel episode will presumably be higher quality.
I kind of like those meatballs.
I do too.
So yeah, enjoy it. So I think that's all from us for this week.
Yeah.
Goodbye. No, that's all from us over at Buffy Boys HQ, BBHQ. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. Tell your friends. Tell your
social workers. Tell
your friends. Tell your social worker. And we will see you next time.
I'm Buffy Boys.
I'm Buffy Boys.
That's it.
See ya.
Slán.